Channel 4 has been doing great work throughout Israel's bombardment of Gaza, and they interviewed here an IDF soldier who concealed their identity but spoke to Channel 4 News about what it's like to be in the IDF in this current moment and how little regard, to put it mildly, of course, the IDF has for civilians. I think some of what he says here is important information just to get inside the mentality of what the IDF collectively kind of is engaging in right now.
At what stage did you start to have concerns about how the war was being fought?
I was serving in a commanding unit of a battalion that was fighting in Gaza. On the first couple of weeks, no one went in, right? So we were just sitting on our asses, essentially looking in screens, essentially the drones going above Gaza. You just go through those channels and you look for those buildings just falling. It feels like Netflix, it feels like a video game for the first couple of days. But there is a moment you realize it's a freaking actual house. It just got completely destroyed. And I don't know, but there probably were some people in there. Maybe there are terrorists, maybe there are not, or Hamas, whatever. But you don't know. And then you start asking yourself, are all of those strikes, airstrikes, necessary? Or are we just having a light hand on the trigger here? And then it starts, and once it starts, it never stops.
The bloody images from October the 7th traumatized the country. Scenes of some Gazan civilians celebrating or participating in the attacks fueled existing bitterness and hatred.
When you're watching these screens, what's the mood like of other people around you?
A lot of people are happy to see that we are paying back. That's like the Israeli retaliation.
And was that because they were convinced that they were hitting Hamas fighters, you think, or it went beyond that?
A lot of them don't draw the line between what we call militants or terrorists and what we would call civilians. After the 7th, for example, people saw those videos of those people being paraded through the streets around Gaza, right? And those people cheer or even take part in whatever it is. So they say, like, all of them are part of it. Like, they all support it.
Was that quite a widespread view that everyone in Gaza is complicit?
Very much so. For many of the people around me, that was the thing. It came from saying, those are the kids that we spared in the war in 2014, right? Those are the kids that we spared then are now the terrorists that did the 7th, right?
So the implication there being, if you kill a kid now, it's okay.
Everyone, yeah. That was, I don't want to say the majority, but it was alarmingly widespread in the people around me talking about this.
So the quote there that just really sticks out in my mind is, those are the kids we spared in 2014, the kids we spared then, meaning we killed these children's families or a family member. We mowed the lawn, as the Netanyahu government refers to before this latest slaughter, this mass slaughter and this genocide. The previous attempts to quell Palestinian resistance by just like killing people randomly, or in 2014, another slaughter as well. They're saying, well, we were too soft back in 2014. We should have killed those kids then, because now it's 10 years later, and look what they've grown up to be, terrorists. And you hear it there. And how it's like a video game. He describes what the soldiers do with their sitting at computers with the drone footage. Because as like the media continues to this day, all of the mainstream press calls it the Israel-Hamas war. There really isn't much conversation about the fact that what are the casualty numbers right now on the Israel side from a civilian perspective? Because they're still getting their nails done. You see Tel Aviv, people are going out to dinner. It's things are good in Israel for the most part. People don't see what's happening on the other side of the wall. Yeah,
the Israeli civilian casualties, in terms of in terms of what happens like in a fight or something, ends on October 7th.
Yep.
However, there are Israeli civilian casualties at the hands of the IDF that are more recent. We know this because they assassinated three, at the very least, we know they assassinated three people who were captured, Israeli civilians who were captured by Hamas, who escaped and were running to the IDF for help, and the IDF decided to shoot them down.
And Hamas is saying, just to add to your point briefly, Binder, that they don't have 40 hostages to meet the demands of Israel for the prisoner exchanges. That was from a few weeks ago, meaning, they knew, Netanyahu knew what he was doing. He was issuing the Hannibal Directive. These hostages are probably dead from the bombardment or the starvation that
they're
Israel's
gas for tank engines.
Imposing on them, right?
I mean, this is a genocidal mindset. Now, how many times over the last 10 years have we seen defenders of Israel point to demographic charts of how the population is growing in Gaza or whatever, or how many young people are in Gaza? Be like, oh, we're not doing a great job, and you clearly see why. It's because of this, because they actually do look at that as these kids are future terrorists, and what they are is future resistance to a settler colonial structure. So we have all this stuff about why can't the Gazans see Israelis as humans? For the same reason that Israelis can't see Gazans as humans. It's a settler colonial project that is pitting them against the other in a rivalrous way that is leading to people being killed over it. So it this sort of project can't work, and there's a reason why the colonies fell in the past century, and there's a reason why this one is playing out in this sort of violence. It's because it should have fallen like the others, and people should be living with full democratic rights regardless of whatever their nationality is, or whatever their background is, or whatever we're deciding lets somebody immigrate to that part of the world and doesn't let people return to places they still have keys for from 75 years ago.
When you put it in the context of racial discrimination and apartheid, and you just basically ask this simple question of people who are liberal Zionists, they can't answer this. But how do you preserve a Jewish demographic majority in a majority Arab region? How do you do that? You do it by force.
Cutting the grass.
You build a wall and then you mow the lawn, as the Israeli government has been doing in Gaza. But these liberal Zionists that say, we are against racism, we have those rainbow signs on our lawn, we hate Donald Trump for all of his bigotry and all of that. And they say they would never support something like a Jim Crow system. But at the same time, Israel is a Jewish state. And how do you create a statehood that is defined by a religion or an ethnicity? You have to maintain a demographic majority. How do you do that?
You spirit the penniless populations across the border.
Right. You open you found a country based on displacement, the Nakba in 1948, literally just kicking out Palestinians from their homes and taking the keys, as Matt said, and those who resisted were killed. And then all of the history that's extended since then. So it's one that's built on dehumanization, and you can even see it in the practices of the Israeli military, where it's so technologically advanced that, as that soldier said, it felt like Netflix. It felt like a video game, because they can go get a cup of coffee, have a sandwich, sit down at a computer, and then blow up an entire apartment building as children are dying from starvation and their ribs are sticking out just miles away from them.
And we bankroll it.
It's interesting because even among a lot of anti-Trump mainstream liberals, a lot of them have taken up language in recent years to describe fascist Christianity. It's become a mainstream among them. They recognize what far-right evangelicals preach and believe and what they want, yet many of those same people support Israel and don't see how analogous the two are. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Let's
we talk about policing protests. John Hagee was at the March for Israel. As opposed to some and by the way, these sort of anti-Semites that follow this crap around are getting exactly what they want in this exposure. When somebody points a camera at them and says, "Oh, look at this person that represents these protests now," when they've just been the same kind of like anti-Semite doing the same bullshit around this city for years. Like, it's exactly what they want, is that exposure. It's so sickening.
Dave from Jamaica says war, more like colonial massacre. Andrew from Vermont said,
Literally.
I had this thought last night. Could the Biden administration be waiting to break with Israel until closer to the election as a way to make a bigger splash? I think I think it's more about waiting until afterwards. I mean, Biden is. Did he do a fundraiser recently, Bradley, with Haim Saban? He did. Like, Bradley's going to check how recent this fundraiser was. I mean, Biden's doing.
Don't count on anything from Biden.
Yeah,
Never.
right. We have to make him change course. And some of that polling out of Bloomberg, some of that polling out of Bloomberg basically saying that now there's an 11-point dip overall in swing states in terms of supporting funding Israel. I have a very hopeful thought that I hesitate to even say out loud, to be honest with you. That is a pipe dream, okay? I want to, maybe not a pipe dream. I think there's a possibility of this, and I just want people to flag it. Perhaps the Biden administration, maybe, might try to slow walk some of these arms by saying, oh, this is now in violation of the Leahy laws. We've determined that maybe that they're violating some human rights stuff now that the package has been passed. And then they can say my hands are tied to Netanyahu. That's a hope I have, that maybe there's an off-ramp for Biden in that way.
I mean, Rafa's looming.
I know. I'm just saying something to look out for. I don't think it's a probability.
There needs to be a Deus Ex Machina.
I know. But Biden, if you're listening, and I know I'm your favorite commentator, please just say, oh,
Emma Vigeland and Joe Scarborough, his favorite. Right there.
Yeah.
This is the majority. 4 more years, pause.
Yeah, guess what, Emma?
Get out the void.
Get out the void.
If you're listening, you still have an off-ramp where you could say we can't actually allocate this $26 billion that the Congress passed because the Leahy laws prohibit giving arms to people.
I'll do the ice bucket challenge if that happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think this is
Someone
not even
clip
like,
that.
There's no one more cynical than me about this. I'm just trying to say that is an avenue they could go down if they choose to do it. And I think there's an overwhelming, it's almost likely not, certainly not going to happen. But I'm just flagging that. I'm just flagging it.
Yeah, they'll like shoot a bunch of protesters at the DNC before that happens.
Lemonhead, very nice. MR has been fantastic this week. Says a lot about the program to know it doesn't drop in quality when Sam is out. That's actually very nice.
Yep, thank you for that.
Thank you. And Majority Week, thank you, Emma and Matt, for your passionate and consistent coverage of the genocide. As you said, progressives should now even push for possible bombing of the IDF. IDF is rampaging through Rafah. So what if we were supposed to be anti-war, anti-intervention rather than stopping funding? We should bomb the IDF. That's, so out of the realm of possibility that I can't even express
it. It's more wish casting.
We need to be looking for asks that also de-escalate. And I want the IDF. I want IDF soldiers hauled in front of the Hague, and then we can try them as such. But I don't. want
permanent ceasefire,
more
and
death,
demilitarization. But as far as like what's going on urgently, I'd go ahead, Houthis.
I just want to say, I know this is changing back the subject, but that comment about how the quality remains when Sam's not around, that sounds nice on its face, but then you consider like how it actually plays out in real time, where they're listening to us and they're like, no drop in quality. That doesn't sound as nice.
I'll be honest though, Binder, it for a while when I first got into the show and I was just a listener, I'm like, this Michael and Matt Monday's crap, I can skip that. And then I actually started listening to it. I'm like, you know what? It's actually really good.
I like to take people by surprise. James Comer.
I'm sure a lot of people thought that, honestly, about Matt and Mike Mondays.
You can see
their minds probably changed quickly.
No. And I was just about to read an IM for Binder that was very complimentary of him. Oh, wait, there he is.
There he is. You're back. We lost you for a second.
Oh, I got frozen. Oh, my God. I didn't even know. All right.
All right, you want to hear this? James Comer's micro penis says, Binder, that debate with the MR listener was wild. I applaud your patience. That dude saying resistance in any means necessary was infuriating. My guy, this is frankly embarrassing proof that you have no understanding of history of the civil rights movement, or dare I say, even heard the name Malcolm X. Excellent job, Binder.
Or Nelson Mandela.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I spoke with him for a while. I appreciate his calling in. A lot of these people don't, they'll talk shit in the chat and then just disappear. So he said he's a fan of ours. He just disagrees on, he doesn't even disagree on the entirety of it, just that there are bad actors at these events. And I was just trying to convince him the best I could that they literally do not matter. They do not hold any power. They are not the driving force behind these protests. They're not a major force, a voice in these protests. And then also a lot of what you're complaining about, sure, some of it might be, an issue, at least in messaging or whatever. But a lot of it is just like basic, historic left-wing protest chants. It's not anything to be upset about.
Wow.
I mean, and like the thing is, like the March for Israel, it's like the problem wasn't the fringe, really extreme people, like I don't know, calling people Arabs or whatever on the side. It was what was being said on the stage, which is like, we need to do war to save hostages, which we all know was a massive contradiction and did absolute, like, I mean, a dishonor to anybody who was kidnapped on October 7th to think that the solution was to bomb, when we all know the solution was ceasefire and negotiations and hostage swaps.